you guys enjoyed the event. Tune in to the Fightlete Report Show.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us on the most action-packed 2 hours on Chicagoland Sports Radio.com. Latina Epicina.
There you go.
My name is Motaz Oscar, and shout out to the Fightlete Report.
UFC is the first sport back. You know, you think about, all the other sports that are, halted. I mean, when the NBA said that they were suspending their season, I knew to take this seriously, obviously, as everyone else did, because they were the first ones that said that. Even when the Arnolds were postponed, that was a big red flag. So just because that's actually a sporting event within itself, international, competition. So talk about, UFC being back, and you feel it's the right choice this time and how they're handling things.
I mean, they're doing the best they can. I see both sides of it. I've kind of been down the middle on this thing the entire time, where it's, if the fighters don't fight, they don't get paid, right? It's not set up like the NBA or NHL or any of these other sports where they still collect a paycheck. And I think the UFC, they're doing the best they can. And it was good to see fights back. I mean, we're all fans at the end of the day. I know it's not the most ideal situation, but UFC's testing the media. They're keeping people quarantined. I think they're doing the best job they can. And I'm glad to see some live sports again, because, I'm sure you're like myself. I'm dying here. I got to see something. So I thought, kudos to the UFC for everything they've done. Just even with the media, like I said, like them doing this virtual media day, it's really good for us at the Score, because obviously we're going to get some extra coverage. So just happy all around. That's cool. I hope they do that more often with the virtual media day. And then, it might be a thing going forward. We'll see what happens, because I don't see any reason why they shouldn't do it, at least until things are back to normal. And like I said, it's a good opportunity for us as well. Then we don't have to spend as much on travel. I can literally stay at home and do a lot of my work. So it's been great.
That's true. I do miss, not having like Bellator and UFC in town in Chicago. Actually Bellator, unfortunately, we had the news that Ditka's closed, and they hold the Bellator press conferences. So that's really sad.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's certainly. It's too bad that obviously Bellator won't be back at least till the summer. But maybe they can do something similar. I don't know. We'll see. That's true.
Then what's your 3 biggest takeaways from UFC Fight Night Jacksonville? If you had
which one are we talking about? Wednesday or Saturday?
Saturday.
Okay, gotcha. Because I think they're both considered fight. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. Saturday. Let's see. I mean, there was a lot to take away. I think Alistair Overeem, I did not expect him to survive that first round. I thought for sure the ref was going to step in and stop it. So surprised by that Overeem was able to overcome adversity. But when you think of the fact he's got 43 more professional fights than Walt Harris, I mean, that experience does come into play there. Obviously, the judging was a story. I think people are a little bit overreactionary about some of the decisions. I mean, there were some close fights. I don't know if they were necessarily robberies. Like there were obviously some questionable decisions. I did think that out of all of them, I thought the Marlon Chito Vera and the Song Yadong fight, that's the one that should have been awarded to Vera. And it's unfortunate because, Vera had a nice winning streak heading into that. And Song Yadong has now had 2 fights that have been a bit controversial. That draw with Cody Stamann, I think people felt like Stamann won that fight as well. So, that was a little disappointing. And then I think the other thing is just, sort of seeing some of the, the up and comers. We had Nate Landwehr getting his first UFC win, upset win over Darren Elkins. We're seeing some other guys just really put on some good performances. Let me pull up the card so I can kind of get a full scope of it here. But I thought that was probably the best card out of the 3, and that includes UFC 249. There was a lot of finishes. It flowed really well. 249 was a great card, but I thought this card was right up there as well. Kevin Holland, that was the other one I forgot about. 28, it was like first round finish over Anthony Hernandez. Wasn't expecting that. Courtney Casey getting her first finish since 2016. Very impressive. Looked great at flyweight. I think she should stay in that weight class just because there's more of an opportunity for her to move up the rankings. There was a lot of really good highlights. And how about that heavyweight prospect Rodrigo Nascimento taking out a really tough guy in Dontel Mays, who I know you're pretty familiar with. He looked great. Really good prospect in the heavyweight division. So this card had a little bit of everything, and obviously, unfortunately, overshadowed a little bit by the judging.
That's true. Yeah, I know the judging is obviously going to be a close thing, right? Because I know Angela Hill, people thought she won against Claudia Gadelha, and that was a controversial call, obviously. In some people's mind, some people might say, hey, Angela Hill didn't do enough, and Claudia Gadelha, controlled her with the grappling. So you're going to have those calls, you know what I mean? As controversial as they are.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think judging is going to continue to be an issue. You'd think without the crowd, it would, maybe change things a little bit. Some judges get influenced by the crowd, but it's It's still going to be an issue. That's one of the things I've been asking a lot of the fighters lately. What can we do to improve it? Should we do open scoring? Should we get more judges in there? Should we get MMA fighters in as judges? Although then you got to worry about the biases, about the, who they train with and stuff. But there's got to be some changes made, I think, because we're seeing this too often.
Definitely, I agree. And now Cejudo retired after he defeated Dominic Cruz. Who did you have going into that fight? A lot of people were picking Cruz to win.
Oh no, I had Cejudo.
Yeah,
more active, really good wrestler. Like Cruz had never fought. Cruz had fought good wrestlers. Like I think Faber and guys like Scott Jorgensen were like, and Dillashaw. I think they were all like high level wrestlers in college. But we're talking about Cejudo as an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. Like that's just not the type of wrestling he would be used to. More active, all that stuff. So I had picked Cejudo going in. I didn't have an issue with the stoppage. The most surprising thing, like you said, was the retirement. I figured he just won the title last year. He's probably going to defend it a little bit. People said this retirement's not going to stick. I've heard his manager, Ali Abdelaziz, come out and say that it's, Henry will fight this year. I don't know, because his coach, Captain Eric, he was pretty emotional after that. I don't think that's something that, like, if he was retiring, I don't think Captain Eric's getting that upset. I have a feeling he is staying retired, but we'll see. It's MMA, right? Retirements are... they don't last too long.
Like you said, we don't have to hear from him in a while because people were very annoyed by him, but by the comments he was making and stuff pre-fight. And, he's just selling the fight. That's all it was. But people were really, despised him. Did you get that?
Yeah, I got that too. I think it was, he's just trying something. He got people invested, whether they hated him or not hated him. It's better than people not being invested. So I think, do whatever works, right?
Definitely. Now we're moving forward with the UFC Fight Island, and we're not sure, how the logistics would work out for this. I'm sure media is going to be involved, of course, as well as the fighters. We'll have Brett Okamoto. He's already singing a song about it, so his heart is already there, even though his body isn't. But is this going to be safe? Because the fact that you have one incident, and how are you going to isolate that one person when you're on an island? I'm just worried about the obviously multiple infections happening. And, if they pull this off successfully, could we see the Fight Island happen after the pandemic? This would be a reoccurring.
It's possible. Yeah. I'm curious to see what it looks like. Like the closest thing we've had to a Fight Island was Bodog, Costa Rica. If you remember that part, it was outdoors and they're right on the beach and stuff. So I think it's kind of a cool concept. We'll see. I mean, I know they're still building it. They're still figuring it out. We'd have to, I don't really know until they'd actually have an event and see what it's like. Just like we didn't know how these fight nights were going to go and the 249 pay-per-view. So, I would think that, UFC's got a lot of money. I think they're putting in the proper procedures. I think it's kind of a cool idea. And I would hope that they look at doing it going forward, except you got to worry about weather, right? Like, unless they have something to put it over. But sign me up. Actually, didn't PFL or they did like an outdoor show before, but not the same as being on an island. An island's a lot cooler, right? So
yeah, I know. Like Bellator, they've done some outdoor stuff in Kansas City, but it's just not the same thing. Do you feel like that's something you want to do? Go to Fight Island in the future?
We'll see. I always like going to beaches and stuff. So we'll see. Obviously once this COVID stuff over, a lot of people have asked me, would I go, if I could go cover an event live, would I go do that right now during the pandemic? The answer is no. I have a 2-year-old at home. Right. Why put myself at risk or my family at risk if I don't have to, especially when they have the virtual media day as well. So until everything's sort of back to normal, who knows when that'll be. I think that's when I'd go and travel. But yeah, of course, who wouldn't want to go to an island? It would be good. I'd bring my shorts to media day. It would be fun.
And I believe there's still an international travel ban from like Canada to U.S.
Oh, there is. I can't even. I live 5 minutes from the U.S. border. I can't go across right now, even to get gas. So it's still on lockdown.
You're close to New York or Massachusetts?
No, I'm on the West Coast because remember I live in Vancouver now, so I'm actually close to Washington State.
Washington State. Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy to think about that.
No, it is. Right? Actually, I think I've told people this before. I always get my gas in the U.S. because it's cheaper. It's cheaper by like a lot. So I used to go down there all the time, but now I can't because if I go down even to this little like section of land that dips into Washington State, which is really just a small town, it's called Point Roberts. Even if I go down there, I get quarantined for like 2 weeks. So not worth it.
Wow. Yeah. And it's also crazy. Like my friend Josh, he still has a room booked for MGM, hoping that this all happens. And, he's from Canada as well. He's from Edmonton. So we'll have to wait and see. Realistically, with the UFC Hall of Fame happening, is this going to be a private event, not going to happen around fans? Like the whole International Fight Week, it's still going to happen, but with nobody in attendance?
I don't know if they'll do an International Fight Week. Like, I think they'll probably just do one card and then maybe have like, some stuff going on, but it won't be like it was before. If the UFC can't make money, if they can't bring fans into it, I don't see them making it like what we've seen in past years. I think they'll probably look towards the year after, which is a bummer because, that's the first time I met you was during an International Fight Week. It's I love that. I've gone every year. I haven't missed. I think I've gone the last like 4 years. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the Hall of Fame. Are they going to do it remotely without any fans?
Probably, yeah. I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then what about Kevin Randleman being inducted? Like, any thoughts about that?
Great move. Love Kevin Randleman. Those newer MMA fans, go back, do your homework, go watch the old Pride fights. This guy was unreal. I love the blonde hair, like Simon Phoenix from Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Just an unreal guy. And there's a bit of a Canadian connection because I know he worked with Sean Tompkins for a while. If you remember, the legendary coach who also passed away suddenly. So I remember when I was working at Fight Network, Randleman was in town doing some seminars. So just a great guy and a huge influencer on the sport.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see, this Hall of Fame taking place, and we're excited for it. Hopefully it still happens, where we can enjoy it,
They'll probably have a live stream, I would think, like they had before. Yeah. So, because remember last year at the Hall of Fame, they had the earthquake. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. I wasn't there, but I remember my friend Brian. He was there, and he said he felt the earthquake. It was during the Rashad Evans induction, right?
It was, yeah. It was a little crazy. Yeah. I was walking back to my hotel at the time, and I remember thinking, like, something's not right here. And then sure enough, it was an earthquake. So it was kind of crazy.
And another question is, do you think George St. Pierre will actually be live at the induction, or will he have to do it remotely himself because he lives in Canada?
Well, it depends what the band looks like. I don't think they would count that as essential travel. So probably do like a satellite thing.
Oh, wow. That'd be interesting because I was anticipating just the fans getting to see GSP in person. The GSP doesn't do a lot of appearances. He's not a guy that's doing autograph sessions. He doesn't need the finances, right? He's not really making any appearances on any other sports. Like, you don't see him in pro wrestling. So this was a rare opportunity for him and the fans to reconnect, and I feel it's been robbed from us. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. No, yeah, it is a bummer. But on the same token, like, you got to play by the rules. It's no different than, all these sports right now that are trying to do have events on, but they can't have any fans. So like in Canada, I don't know if you're aware, this is just like a small example, like the CFL. I don't even know if they're going to survive this thing because they need fans. They rely so heavily on the live gate. I mean, they're not a big league. So there's talk now about them trying to get a government bailout. I don't know what's going to happen. So it's impacting everyone, this COVID stuff. And we'll sort of see how things get adjusted as time goes on.
That's true. And, you mentioned Bellator MMA, right? We said that they might return this summer. However, I don't know if they have the financing to do all those testing. Like, you know what I mean? I know they're owned by Viacom, and that's a huge company, but will they be the ones to say, hey, we'll spend this amount that UFC is on testing? And keeping that in mind, how are regional MMA promotions going to survive during this time? Because they really don't have the resources to do live streaming without the fans. Live stream was just an added bonus for them. They got their money through the gate.
Well, I think Titan FC is trying to do a show, but in general, it's not going to happen. I think you're going to, until they have fans back, even just a few fans, I think even then you probably wouldn't do shows because you're not going to make the money you would make from a full house. So, so to your second question, I don't think regional MMA will be back until, there'll be a few shows going on, but I think most of them, you won't see them, do any shows. And then as far as Bellator, they're going to have to do the testing. Like, they'll probably just have to do less events. They'll have to take whatever money they were going to use for another card and probably use it on the testing because they have to do it. If they don't, and you get a couple fighters, like the UFC had one fighter and a couple cornermen quarantine. Imagine if everyone on the card got it. That would be devastating. So they don't want that risk. So I think they're going to have to get the tests, and they'll probably just mean less cards and more structured cards. And unfortunately, if you're a Bellator fighter right now, you're probably not going to fight for a while. I wouldn't think they're going to do as many shows as they're used to.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to reschedule the Ryan Bader fight.
Big time.
That was really scheduled for March. I think that'll be the first one. Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see, how they do it, if they're going to do the teleconferences and all that as well. Obviously, mixed martial arts is such a huge business now, and unfortunately, with a lot of the fighters, what they're going through. How do you feel about how they were really, they're really creative in their training? How they were able to, do like private sessions, keep it to 5 people, and still the quality of fight. We're good. Were you surprised?
No, I think if you're a fighter in general, you have to think outside the box. There's fighters that have regular jobs that still have to train on top of it. There's fighters with large families that they still have to compete on top of that. So if you're a fighter, you got to be a little bit creative when it comes to that stuff, right? Like, you have to find ways to get your training in. And I know some fighters, they have to be really secretive about it. They're not really supposed to be in the gym. I remember Piotr Jan, when I interviewed him recently, he was telling me that he actually had a policeman stop him and his friend from training in their backyard. Some policemen saw them and they had to stop. So it just goes to show, you got to be very creative.
Definitely. I think a lot of fighters are showing that. And, we're seeing really quality fights, and they're showing that they're ready to do this and do whatever it takes. Which is exciting. It's exciting for us fans to know that the fighters are just as committed as the UFC is, and we the fans are committed to obviously checking it out, and the media is committed to covering. So I think it takes a commitment from both sides. Don't you agree for this?
100%. Oh yeah. No, for sure. It's got to be a team effort.
And Justin Gaethje, were you surprised he took out Ferguson? Not that, he was going to squeak by a close decision, but the way he dominated Ferguson, were you surprised by that at all?
I was. I did pick Gaethje going into the fight. I felt he was more active, and I knew that Tony got hit a lot, and I felt like Gaethje would have a way. Like if you think about it, who's Ferguson fought over the last couple of fights that hits as hard as like a Justin Gaethje? Not many guys. I was just surprised at how dominant he was. That did surprise me. I picked him to win, but figured it was going to be like an early stoppage or even like mid-round stoppage. But to go out there and dominate him the way he did, kudos to Justin Gaethje. This is a guy who's really reinvented himself since having those 2 losses to Poirier and Alvarez. He's looked outstanding. So just kudos to him. And hey, first champion out of Elevation Fight Team. So that's good for that, Jim.
Yeah, it is definitely. They're one of the most underrated gyms as well, and they're starting to get the national prominence that they should be. Moving forward, man, you feel like Overeem, where does he go from here? Do you feel like he has a chance to, get back in the mix, or do you feel like he's just going to be a gatekeeper? Or, I don't want to actually put him in that role, but unfortunately, you feel like that's going to be the role he's going to be at for quite some time.
I think he's sort of past the gatekeeper point because he is still. I mean, he had a good winning streak before he lost to Rosenstruik, right? So, I think overall, if you look at his record, I think he's won I forget how many fights, but I think he's still up there. Will he fight for a title again? It's tough to say. There's a bit of a logjam up there, right, with this whole Stipe and DC thing, and then you've got Curtis Blades fighting Volkov. If Blades wins or Volkov wins, that certainly changes things up a little bit. So, Overeem's up there, but I don't know if he'll ever fight for a title again. He's not getting any younger, and the division right now is at a bit of a logjam. If it was a little bit more wide open, I'd say, yeah, there's probably a good opportunity. But I think right now, if I was a betting man, I'd say he probably doesn't fight for a title again just because of how crowded things are at the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it is very crowded. And Francis Ngannou feels like he has the right to stay claim heavyweight title shot. I wouldn't argue with that. But the fact that, remains that he's still looking for an opponent. We heard him and John Jones tweeting back and forth. Do you think any realistically that this could happen? Or is Ngannou going to wait for Stipe and DC to play out first?
It's all about money. If the UFC comes to the table and they throw a boatload of money at both these guys, I think they could make it happen. The fans want the fight. I personally think the fight would be interesting. That he's got to wait anyways for Stipe and DC. Jones, I mean, he does have some unfinished business at 205, but I kind of like fights like this where, you could have some of those contenders fight each other. You could have like Jan Blachowicz fight like Thiago Santos and maybe whoever else is sort of available in that contenders, and then just have Jones do like a one-off fight with him and Ngannou. That would be a tremendous fight because who's hit John Jones like that hard like a Ngannou can? No one really, right? So that has the type of devastating knockout power. Like Glover has knockout power, but it's different than what Ngannou brings to the table. So I'm interested in that. I think that would be very cool.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think that'd be a fun fight, and we can't wait for it. And then, of course, May 30th, we know that UFC is scheduled, but we have Gilbert Burns, stepping up to take on Tyron Woodley at 170. Exciting fight. We still don't have a location. Realistically, does this happen at the Apex in Vegas? Are we going to get an announcement between now and then that Vegas is uplifting the combat sports ban?
I think so. If not, Dana said they might go to Arizona. They'll do somewhere on the West Coast, though. I think just logistically, it's easier for them. Their headquarters are in Las Vegas, so it would make sense for them to do it. It's really going to depend on the government. There's an account I follow on Twitter that sort of has all the updates on Las Vegas, and I know some stuff is starting to open up. So we'll see. I think it would be good to see them back in Vegas, but it's really not up to them. It's up to the government and what is going to be available to them. And I think that's why you haven't heard them name a location yet, because they need some time to get all the logistics sorted out, and they just had 3 events, so they need a breather in between there too.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm sure we'll hear something in the next couple of weeks because we still don't have a location for UFC 250, the fight between Nunes and Felicia Spencer. So
exactly, yeah. And I just talked to a fighter on the Tyron Woodley and Gilbert Burns card, and they still don't know where the fight is. So it's not even like we're in the dark. Everyone's in the dark apparently.
Yeah, I know. It's just hopefully it gets worked out, and I feel like the location can be added later. The fighters know they have a date, they have a time. They know what they're going to be doing. So they could be fighting on the moon regardless. They'll be
exactly.
they'll be
We'll still watch. Doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So.
I mean, like we talked about their fighting. It's really a non-factor for most of them. Some of them are like, oh, it's great. It's in my hometown or it's someplace I'd love to visit, have some downtime. But most of the time it's a non-factor. Like, we could be fighting anywhere. We're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, James, I think that's about all I have for you, man. I appreciate you being on the Fightlete Report, Talking Shop podcast, and being part of the weekly broadcast with me this week. And so anybody who wants to check out your content, give them an example of what you have too, because you have different kinds of shows.
Yeah, so I mean, we have I do the preview show every Monday, preview and recap show where we, preview an upcoming card, recap the last one. We got the podcast, which is out every Tuesday, although I didn't do one this week. I just didn't have any time. I was so busy last week with the 3 events. So that'll be out next Tuesday. I already interviewed some people for that. That'll be out on Tuesday. Typically Wednesday, Thursday, we have like a pros picks video out, usually talking about an upcoming fight. So that's usually out there. Thursday, I always do a show called Early Look, where we take a look at a really notable upcoming fight. This Thursday, I'll be previewing Tyron Woodley and Gilbert Burns, just going through a bunch of really interesting stats on both fighters and just going in depth on the matchup, giving my pick, talking about the betting lines, and answering questions about the fight and the welterweight division. So I do that every Thursday as well. And then the rest of the week is just interview clips, just cool little clips I can find from the podcast, because we do like a 2-hour show. So I kind of take some of the interesting clips and put those on the channel as well too, and just to get a little bit more promotion. But that's basically what's on deck. But I always tell people, one of the things with us at The Score is you're going to find unique content. You're going to find stuff that not everyone's going to have. And I know it's a busy, crowded MMA space, but we try and give you guys something a little bit different. And thanks for having me on, man. I always love talking to you, man. I always appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, anytime, man. And it was also funny seeing Adesanya talk to you about the favorite porn stars. I was like, well,
I went there. I did go there. Well, because no one's going to ask him that. Actually, funny story about that. So he actually tweeted that out last year. Or no, was it last year? No, it was before he fought Romero. He had the tweet out there. So when I had to interview him leading up to the Romero fight, it was through the UFC. They had to set it up. So I was like, I'm probably not going to ask that question because there's going to be another UFC PR person on the line. So I wanted to wait till I got him like one-on-one. And I brought it up just more like a joke and stuff. And he had a good answer for it. I thought it was more just like a funny thing, and he was very open about it. So I thought, why not run for it? Ariel Helwani's not going to ask that question, right? So figured I go a little bit.
That's true. It's fun to ask. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I even asked Sam Alvey, what does he like doing? And he said Disney Plus. He loves watching all the old cartoons and stuff like that. So I like to hear, different stuff like that you normally wouldn't get. It's a lot of fun. So definitely, we appreciate you, of course, James, and keep up the great work. And love having you on the Fight Report. And so, everybody check out the Score MMA. I'm following it, so you guys should as well. A lot of great content coming up.
Thanks so much, Sean. Appreciate it. Hopefully, when this is all over, we can go play some video games in Chicago again. Maybe I'll come out and I'll play some more NFL Blitz.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, well, we have Bellator is scheduled tentatively for October, but I don't want to get my hopes up.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, definitely. Next time UFC's in town for sure. And then I feel like this is not going to last forever. This is just something we're going through right now at this time. So, it's not going to last forever. We'll be back back to normal, as soon as we can be, I feel like. So I just, telling everybody there listening to this, please stay positive, guys, reach out to us. If you ever need someone to talk to, especially me, I'm always available, to chat and, stay strong, guys. I'm glad we have this outlet of mixed martial arts. We can each other and talk and go can, because it's a very difficult time for everybody. Take care, James.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.